Let's talk about the lesson plan elements in detail and relate them to today's lesson. First of all, you need to determine the lesson's learning objectives. The learning objectives state what the students will be able to do by the end of the lesson. You'll find these objectives stated clearly in the teacher's guide, as you can see in this extract from the teacher's guide on the screen. They are written in a specific way which helps you monitor and observe your students' progress in achieving these objectives easily. In today's lesson, students should be able to use vocabulary for talking about evaluating pros and cons. Exercise 2. Listen to people evaluating pros and cons, exercises 5 and 6. Evaluate the pros and cons of making a specific decision, exercise 7 and task. It's very important to share the objectives with your students before starting the lesson, to help your students focus their attention on the lesson's objectives. For today's lesson, you are going to help your students use words for evaluating the pros and cons of a specific topic to make a specific decision. For today's lesson, you'll need to use students' book pages 48 and 49, the audio files. For today's lesson, welcome your student to the class. Ask students if they are well and invite the student to respond. If a student did the next lesson independent study on AI suggested at the end of the last lesson, ask volunteers to share what they did or what they learned depending on the option they selected. Ask students, do you think you will use AI more often now? Why and why not? Explain to students that in this lesson, they are going to learn ways to help them make a decision. After that, read through the lesson objectives in the box with the class so that they know what to expect and also they can revisit them when they check their progress at the end of the lesson. After that, we move to the presentation stage when you start presenting the lesson's language. For exercise 1, students are to work in pairs to discuss decision making as a presentation for the coming exercise. Explain to students that this lesson is about making decisions and things that we can do to help us make big decisions. Read through the questions and ask students to discuss in pairs. If a student did the next lesson preparation, then they will be able to share some of the decisions they made since the last session. Come together as a class and discuss students' responses. Some students might find it difficult to respond to the second part of the question too. But don't worry, they will learn some ways to help make difficult decisions in this lesson. Now that the students have received the target language, you need to apply an activity or a group of activities that will allow them to put it into action. In other words, you show students how to practice the new language with your guidance. For exercise 2, students are to get the meaning of new words as they match the words to their definitions. Explain that students will hear these new words in the next exercise. Go through each one individually as a class and elicit what type of word is it, noun, verb, adjective, and so on. Then elicit ideas for the meaning of each word. Ask them to look for clues around the word. Now read through the definitions with the class and check students' understanding. Students match the words to the definitions. Remind them to match the ones they are confident about first. Allow a student to compare answers with a partner before checking as a class. If partners have different answers, they should go back to the text and try to find the correct answer. For exercise 3, students are to learn to use a chart of pros and cons to make decisions more easily. For more support, do part or all of the activity as a class. Draw students' attention to the chart in exercise 4. You might want to check if students understand what a chart is by calling on different ideas from the class. It's a picture that shows information in a simple way. It can use lines, bars, or shapes to make numbers and date easy to understand. Refer a student to the headings, pros and cons, and elicit what each one means. Pros, positive or good points, cons, negative or bad points. Ask a student to make notes on how they think. Using a chart like the one in exercise 4 will help them make a decision. It can make information quicker and easier to read. Give them 1 minute, then ask them to discuss their answers in pairs or small groups. 4. Elicit 1 or 2 ideas from volunteers. Now for exercise 4. Students are to see a sample pros and cons chart. Elicit from the class how many pros and cons there are. 3 of each. Ask students if they think it's difficult or easy to make a decision when there are the same number of both. Actually, it's difficult. In the same pairs and groups as exercise 3, students look at the pros and cons and discuss what they think the dad and son are talking about and what they may have decided based on the information. Ask for students' ideas, but don't confirm, as they will find out what the decision was when they listen to the conversation in the next exercise. Now for exercise 5. Students are to develop their listening comprehension skills as they listen to the first part of the conversation between the dad and son who made the chart in exercise 4, and check their answers. Ask your student to listen and check their answers. Play the audio for them again to help them check their answers. Nominate 2 or 3 students to check answers. As for exercise 6, students are to listen to the whole conversation and then complete the chart with the information they hear. Explain that they are going to write a number on each of the answer lines from 1 to 6. Elicit from the class what these numbers represent, a value from 1 to 10, to show how important each point is. Do the first one together. Say, "It looks good. How many points?" Elicit the answer. Then say, "Write 7 for the first row in the chart." Play the recording again and pause after each answer for students to complete the rest of the chart. Finally, play the recording one more time, pausing for students to check for their answers. For exercise 7, students are to complete the flow chart showing how to evaluate pros and cons with the correct words. Read out the instruction and have a confident students read the skills box to the class. Tell students that they are going to use the flow chart in exercise 7 in the task to help them make a decision. Referring back to exercise 2 to check understanding of the words in the box as necessary. Have your students complete the task individually or in pairs, then compare answers with another pair. Students can then stay in these groups for the task. Now, let's talk about the task section. Read through the task box with the class, then elicit what the first stage in the process is. Choose something to make a decision about. Put students into the same group as exercise 1 to complete the first stage of the task. Circulate and provide help where needed, and write any vocabulary that students need on the board. Once students have put their information together, ask what's the next stage in the process, presenting their full charts and decision to the class. Groups present their chart to the class. Encourage other groups to ask questions to understand more about the decision and how it was made.
تابعوا حلقات برنامج دليل المعلم على تطبيق مدرستنا بلس. مدرستنا، المستقبل يبدأ الآن.